Welcome to the Way of the Taibhsear podcast. This is episode 31, The Sons of Tuireann, Part 2. This week's Celtic god is Nua, spelled N-U-A-D-A. Nua was the first king of the Tuireann in Ireland. He lost his right hand in a battle with the Firbolg, and the druid healer Dianceart replaced it with a silver hand. As king, he was well loved by his people, but he had to step down due to the loss of his limb. Irish law required that a king be whole in order to serve. But when Dianceart replaced his hand through his druidic healing arts, Nua was able to regain the throne. He's the god of air and of battle. As a warrior, he rules over courage, loyalty, and duty. Mistletoe is sacred to Nua, and his sacred tree is the ash. Lions and falcons are Nua's sacred animals. Invoke Nua in situations where you must relinquish authority to another. If Nua enters your life, prepare to take the reins of power from another with their consent, or prepare to have your power taken from you. The Sons of Tuireann, Part 2. On last week's podcast, we began the story of the Sons of Tuireann. When we left off, the Sons of Tuireann had been given several labors to perform as a penalty and fine for killing Lu's father, Cian. They had gone to the land of the king of the island of Seagar, who owned the 2 horses and the chariot Lu the Aldunnoch had asked of them. On today's podcast, we will begin Part 2 of Book 2 of the story, The Sons of Tuireann, from Of Gods and Fighting Men, by Lady Gregory. They stopped in the court for a fortnight and a month, and they never saw the horses throughout that time. Then Brian said, "This is a bad way we are in, to have no more news of the horses now than the first day we came to this place. What is best for us to do now?" said his brothers. "Let us do this," said Brian. "Let us take our arms and gather our things together, and go to the king and tell him we will leave the country and this part of the world, unless he will show us the horses." So they went to the king that very day, and he asked them what did they mean by getting themselves ready for a journey. "You will hear that, High King," said Brian. "It is because trained fighting men from Ireland, like ourselves, have always trust put in them by the kings that they guard, and we are used to be told the secrets and the whispers of any person we are with. And that is not the way you have treated us since we came to you. For you have 2 horses and a chariot that are the best in the world, as we have been told, and we have not been given a sight of them yet." "It would be a pity of you to go on that account," said the king, "when I would have showed them to you on the first day, if I had known you had a wish to see them. And if you have a mind to see them now, you may see them, for I think that they never came soldiers from Ireland to this place that were thought of more by myself and by my people than yourselves." He sent for the horses then, and they were yoked to the chariot, and their going was as fast as a cold spring wind, and the sea was the same as the land to them. And Brian was watching the horses closely, and on a sudden he took hold of the chariot, and took the chariot driver out, and dashed him against the nearest rock, and made a leap into his place himself, and made a cast of the Persian spear at the king that went through his heart. And then he and his brothers scattered the people before them, and brought away the chariot. "We will go now to Isel, the king of the golden pillars," said Brian, "to look for the 7 pigs that Ildanach bade us to bring him." They then sailed on without delay or drawback to that high country. And it is the way of the people of that country were, watching their harbours for fear of the Sons of Tuireann, for the story of them had been told in all parts, and how they had been sent out of Ireland by force, and how they were bringing with them all the gifted treasures of the whole world. Isel came to the edge of the harbour to meet them, and he asked was it true what he'd heard, that the king of every country they had gone to had fallen by them. Brian said it was true, whatever he might wish to do to them for it. "What was it made you do that?" said Isel. Brian told him then it was the oppression and hard sentence of another had put them to it. And he told him all that had happened, and how they had put down all that had offered to stand against them until that time. "What did you come to this country now for?" said the king. "For the pigs belonging to yourself," said Brian, "for to bring them away with us is a part of the fine." "What way do you think to get them?" said the king. "If we get them with good will," said Brian, "we are ready to take them thankfully. And if we do not, we are ready to do battle with yourself and your people on the head of them, that you may fall by us, and we may bring away the pigs in spite of you." "If that is to be the end of it," said the king, "it would be a pity to bring my people into a battle." "It would be a pity indeed," said Brian. Then the king whispered and took advice with his people about the matter. And it is what they agreed to give the pigs up of their own free will to the Sons of Tuireann, since they could not see anyone had been able to stand against them up to that time. Then the Sons of Tuireann gave their thanks to Isel, and there was wonder on them to have gotten the pigs like that, when they had to fight for every other part of the fine. And more than that, they had left a share of their blood in every place until then. Isel brought them to his own house that night, and they were served with food and drink and good beds, and all they could wish for. And they rose up on the morrow, and came into the king's presence, and the pigs were given to them. "It is well you have done by us, giving us these pigs," said Brian, "for we did not get any share of the fine without fighting, but for these alone." And he made a poem for the king then, praising him, and putting a great name on him for what he had done. "What journey are you going to make now, Sons of Tuireann?" said Isel. "We are going," they said, "to the country of Yarura, the cold country, on account of a whelp that is there." "Give me one request," said Isel, "and that is to bring me with you to the king of Yarua, for a daughter of mine is his wife, and I would wish to persuade him to give you the whelp without battle." "That will please us well," they said. So the king's ship was made ready, and we have no knowledge of what happened till they came to the delightful, wonderful coast of Yarua. The people and the armies were watching the harbors and landing places before them, and they knew them at once and shouted at them. Then Isel went on the shore peaceably, and he went to where his son-in-law the king was, and told him the story of the Sons of Tuireann, from the beginning to the end. "What has brought them to this country?" said the king of Yarua. "To ask for the hound you have," said Isel. "It was a bad thought you had coming with them to ask it," said the king, "for the gods have not given that much luck to any 3 champions in the world, that they would get my hound by force or by good will. "It would be better for you to let them have the hound," said Isel, "since all they have put down so many kings of the world." But all he could say was only idleness to the king. So he went then to where the sons of Tuireann were, and gave them the whole account. And when they heard the king's answer, they made no delay, but put quick hands on their arms, and offered to give battle to the army of Yaruah. And when they went, there was a brave battle fought on both sides. As for the sons of Tuireann, they began to kill and strike at the men of Yaruah, till they parted from one another in the fight, so that Lucher and Lucherbar chanced to be on one side, and Brian by himself on the other side. It was a gap of danger and a breaking of ranks before Brian in every path he took, till he came to the king of Yaruah, in the battle pen where he was. And then the two brave champions began a fierce fight together, and they did not spare one another in it. And at last Brian overcame the king, and bound him, and brought him through the middle of the army, till he came to the place where Isel was. And it is what he said: "There is your son-in-law for you, and I swear by my hand of valor, I would think it easier to kill him 3 times than to bring him to you once like this." So then the whelp was given to the sons of Tuireann, and the king was unbound, and peace was made between them. And when they had brought all this to an end, they bade farewell to Isel and to all the rest. Now as to Lu of the Long Hand, it was showed to him that the sons of Tuireann had gotten all the things that were wanting to him against the battle with the former. And on that he sent a druid spell after them to put forgetfulness on them of the rest of the find that they had not got. And he put a great desire and longing on them to go back to Ireland. So they forgot that a part of the find was wanting to them, and they turned back again towards home. And it is the place where Lu was at the time, at a gathering of the people, for a fair on the green outside of Chawer, and the king of Ireland along with him. And it was made known to Lu that the sons of Tuireann were landed at Brunabonye. And he went into the city of Chawer, and shut the gate after him, and put on Manannan's smooth armor, and the cloak of the daughters of Fleish, and took his own arms in his hand. And the sons of Tuireann came to where the king was, and they were made welcome by him and by the Tuatha. And the king asked them, did they get the fine? "We did get it," said they. "And where is Lu till we give it to him?" "He was here a while ago," said the king, "and the whole fair was searched for him, but he was not found." "I know the place where he is," said Brian, "for it has been made known to him that we are come to Ireland, and these deadly arms with us, and he has gone into Chawer to avoid us." Messengers were sent to him then, and it is the answer he gave them that he would not come, but that the fine should be given to the king. So the sons of Tuireann did that, and when the king had taken the fine, they all went to the palace in Chawer. And Lu came out on the lawn, and the fine was given to him. And it is what he said: "There is a good payment here for anyone that ever was killed or ever will be killed. But there is something wanting to it yet that is not lawful to leave out. And where is the cooking spit?" he said. "And where are the 3 shouts on the hill that you did not give yet?" And when the sons of Tuireann heard that, there came clouds of weakness on them, and they left the place and went to their father's house that night, and they told him all they had done, and the way Lu had treated them. There was grief and darkness on Tuireann then, and they spent the night together. And on the morrow they went to their ship, and Ethne their sister with them, and she was crying and lamenting, and it is what she had said: "It is a pity, Brian of my life, it is not to Chawer your going is, after all the troubles you have had before this, even if I could not follow you. O Salmon of the Dumbonye, O Salmon of the Liffey River, since I cannot keep you here, I am loath to part from you. O Rider of the Wave of Tuath, the man that stands best in the fight, if you come back again, I think it will not be pleasing to your enemy. Is there pity with you for the Sons of Tuireann, leaning now on their green shields? Their going is a cause for pity. My mind is filled up with it. You to be tonight at Bain Adair, till the heavy coming of the morning, you who have taken forfeits from brave men, it is you who have increased our grief. It is a pity your journey is from Chower, and from the pleasant plains, and from the great Ishnach of Midye. There is nothing so pitiful as this. After that complaint, they went out on the rough waves of the green sea, and they were a quarter of a year on the sea without getting any news of the island. Then Brian put on his water dress, and he made a leap, and he was a long time walking in the sea looking for the island of the fair-haired women, and he found it in the end. And he went looking for the court, and when he came to it, all he found was a troop of women doing needlework and embroidering borders. And among all the other things they had with them, there was the cooking spit. And when Brian saw it, he took it up in his hand, and he was going to bring it with him to the door. And all the women began laughing when they saw him doing that, and this is what they said. It is a brave deed you put your hand to, for even if your brothers were along with you, the least of 3 times 50 women of us would not let the spit go with you, or with them. But for all of that, they said, take a spit of the spit with you, since you had the daring to try and to take it in spite of us. Brian bade them farewell then, and went to look for the boat. And his brothers thought it was too long that he was away from them, and just as they were going to leave the place where they were, they saw him coming towards them, and that raised their courage greatly. And he went into the boat, and they went on to the hill of Meocrane. And when they came there, Meocrane, that was the guardian of the hill, came towards them, and when Brian saw him and attacked him, and the fight of those 2 champions was like the fight of 2 lions, till Meocrane fell at the last. And after Meocrane had fallen, his 3 sons came out to fight with the 3 sons of Tuireann. And if anyone ever came from the east of the world to look at any fight, it is to see the fight of these champions. He had a right to come, for the greatness of their blows and the courage of their minds. The names of the sons of Meocrane were Cork, and Con, and Yed. And they drove their 3 spears through the bodies of the sons of Tuireann, and that did not discourage them at all, and they put on their 3 spears through the bodies of the sons of Meocrane, so that they fell into the clouds and into the faintness of death. And then Brian said, What way are you now, my dear brothers? We are near our death, said they. Let us rise up, he said, and give 3 shouts upon that hill, for I see the signs of death coming on all of us. We're not able to do that, said they. Then Brian rose up, and raised each of them with 1 hand, and by shedding blood heavily all the time, until they all gave 3 shouts. And after that, Brian brought them with him to the boat, and they were traveling the sea for a long time. But at last Brian said, I see Ben Adair, and our father's done, and Chower of the kings. We would have our fill of health if we could see that, said the others. And for the love of your good name, brother, they said, raise up our heads on your breast till we see Ireland again, and life or death will be the same to us after that. And O'Brien, they said, flame of valor without treachery, we would sooner death to bring ourselves away than to see you with the wounds upon your body and with no physician to heal you." Then they came to Bain Ichlair, and from there they went to their father's house. And Brian said to Tuireann, "Go, dear father, to Chower, and give this spit to Lugh, and bring the skin that has the healing in it for our relief, and ask it from him for the sake of friendship," he said, "for we are all of one blood, and let him not give hardness for hardness. And, O dear father, do not be long on your journey, or you will not find us alive before you." Then Tuireann went to Chower, and he found Lugh the Long Hand before him, and he gave him the spit, and he asked the skin of him to heal his children, and Lugh said he would not give it. And Tuireann came back to them and told them that he had not got the skin. And Brian said, "Bring me with you to Lugh to see if I would get it from him." So they went to Lugh, and Brian asked the skin of him. Again Lugh said he would not give it, and that if they would give him the breadth of the earth in gold for it, he would not take it from them, unless he was sure that their death would come on them in some satisfaction of the deed that they had done. When Brian heard that, he went to the place where his two brothers were, and he lay down between them, and his life went out from him, and out from the other two at the same time. And their father cried and lamented over his 3 beautiful sons, they that had the making of a king of Ireland in each of them. And his strength left him, and he died. And so they were all buried in one grave. This finishes the tale of the Sons of Tuireann. Next week we'll look at some possible interpretations of the symbols and events in the story, and how they might apply to one who wishes to walk in the way of the Taibhsear. Seeking the Awan. To begin this meditation on seeking the Awan, first ground and center yourself. Now allow your internal observer to note your thoughts and feelings. You're not trying to make your thoughts and feelings go away, but at the same time you are choosing to simply observe them. You don't have to interact with your thoughts and feelings unless you choose to do so. For the duration of this meditation, simply choose not to let your thoughts and feelings interfere with your journey towards seeking the Awan. Remember that seeking the Awan is often like pursuing a butterfly. The harder you chase it, the more it eludes you. But if you sit quietly with your hands outstretched, it may come to you willingly on its own. When you feel you are grounded and centered, see Caridwan's magic cauldron of inspiration before you. Picture it in perfect detail. The potion within the cauldron is glowing with a green, healing energy. The aroma is pungent, yet pleasant. You can hear the cauldron boiling as you approach it. You're holding your hand out, palm up, as you approach the cauldron. As you watch the cauldron with your palm outstretched, 3 drops of the potion fly out of the cauldron and land on your hand. These drops are warm, but not unpleasantly painful. Lift your palm to your mouth now and take these 3 drops of divine inspiration within yourself. As the drops pass your lips and into your being, feel your consciousness beginning to expand. The sacred drops are becoming a part of you, and you are becoming one with them. As you achieve this oneness, all of the wisdom of the universe is at your disposal. As your awareness grows, Caridwan appears before you and asks, "Who is it that seeks the Awan?" What is your answer to her? Next she asks, "What is your purpose in seeking the Awan?" How do you answer her? Again she asks, "How will the wisdom that is the Awan aid you on your journey?" Answer her again. Finally she asks, "Why do you seek the Awan now, at this very moment?" Ponder her question and give her a reply. When the boy Gwienbach received 3 drops of inspiration from Caridwan's cauldron, he became Taliesin, the greatest bard the world had ever seen. As Caridwan chased Taliesin, he used the magical wisdom of the Awan to transform himself 4 times. First he became a running hare. With this transformation, he mastered the powers of the element of the earth. The hare is the totem animal of the goddess of the dawn, and in this guise he learned the mysteries of fertility and sovereignty. As you seek the abundance of the Awan, ask it to reveal to you the ways in which you may receive prosperity in your own life, and how you may find the sovereignty of the goddess in your journey. Secondly, Taliesin became a salmon. With this transformation, he mastered the powers of the element of water. The salmon of wisdom is the totem animal of Finn MacCool, the Irish god of the bards. As you seek the poetic inspiration of the Awan, ask it to reveal to you the ways in which you may receive wisdom and the gift of eloquence in your own life, and how you may find the wisdom of the god in your journey. Third, Taliesin became a wren. With this transformation, he mastered the powers of the element of air. The wren is the king of the birds in the Celtic world. In the Welsh tongue, the word dreu means both druid and wren. The wren is known for being a crafty and creative bird. As you seek the creative inspiration of the Awan, ask it to reveal to you the ways in which you may receive this gift of strategy, and how you may find the vitality of life in your journey. Fourth and finally, Taliesin became a grain of corn. With this transformation, he mastered the powers of the element of fire. In addition to being a goddess of inspiration, Caridwan is a goddess of the grain. She blesses the harvest and causes it to prosper and to multiply. As you seek the abundant harvest of the Awan, ask it to reveal to you the ways in which you may receive fruitfulness in your own life, and how you may find the fertility and abundance of Caridwan on your journey. Ponder for a time the wisdom and inspiration the Awan has revealed to you during this meditation, with a spirit of gratefulness and thanksgiving. When you are ready, return to this world, secure in the blessings of the divine wisdom that is the Awan. Apothecary discusses healing properties of herbs and other plants. Herbal medicine requires caution and practice. None of the medicinal uses described in the Herbal Apothecary should be attempted by a novice. Some parts of the plants used in herbal medicines are poisonous, and people with allergies should also be aware of potential allergic reactions to herbs and other plants. If you're interested in herbal medicine, find a skilled practitioner and take lessons. Do not attempt to use medicinal plants without the supervision of an expert. Two weeks ago, we finished listing all the healing trees and plants of the Awan. Starting with this week's podcast, we will include a new segment called the Herbal Apothecary. This new segment of the podcast is about healing herbs and other plants of the southern Appalachian region of the United States. This is the home area of the Order of the Taibhsear. The Herbal Apothecary will focus on the healing and magical properties of these plants and how to use each. We will begin the series first by discussing the many ways in which plants and herbs may be processed for use in healing. Before we begin to discuss particular healing herbs and plants, we should first talk about the various ways in which they may be used. Some of the basic and most common preparations for herbal medicines are infusions, teas, decoctions, distillates, tinctures, salves, and poultices. An infusion is simply a drink made from herbs or other plants. Usually, an infusion involves a single ingredient being steeped or soaked in water heated to just below the boiling point. If the water boils, it can destroy the medicinal qualities of many plants, so it's important when making an infusion to keep a close watch on the temperature. While the term infusion usually refers to plants steeped in water, you may also infuse herbs in various fruit and vegetable juices, milk, cream, alcohol, or vinegar. Such infusions are generally for more practiced herbalists, as the chemical constituency of juices, milks, alcohols, and vinegar can interact in unexpected ways, producing unanticipated results. If you're a beginning herbalist, it's better to stick to infusions made with water unless the recipe you're using specifically states otherwise. To make an infusion, heat the water to the boiling point, then take it off the heat and let it cool for a few seconds until it's no longer bubbling. Now place your leaves or flowers into the water and let it steep unheated for at least 10 minutes. Different herbs have different steeping times, and the more you practice, the more you'll be able to judge how long to let a particular plant steep. If you don't want to risk boiling your herbs, you may also put them in a jar full of warm water and set them in a sunny window for a day or two. For most infusions, it's best to use them on the day that they were created, before the medicinal properties begin to break down. Wait until they've cooled to room temperature, then take them as directed. If you cannot use them on the day that they were prepared, try to use them within 2 to 4 days at the outside. After a week has passed, most of the medicinal properties will have deteriorated, and your infusion will have lost potency. Although laypersons tend to refer to all infusions as teas, technically a tea is a healing beverage made from the dry leaves of a plant. A decoction is similar to an infusion with 2 major exceptions. First, a decoction is made from the harder parts of a plant, such as roots, bark, or berries, as opposed to the leaves or the flowers. Second, decoctions may reach a boiling temperature without damaging the beverage's medicinal properties. A good rule of thumb when creating decoctions is to use 1 part of plant material to about 20 parts of water. Boiling time varies based on the density of the plant material being used, so some degree of experimentation is necessary with each new plant to find a boiling time that's right for your purposes. Decoctions may be used hot, warm, or at room temperature, depending on your own personal preference. Once your decoction has cooled to room temperature, refrigerate it and use it within 2 days. A distillate is the liquid that remains after the essential oils of an herb or a plant have been removed by the process of distillation. A tincture is a plant extract that has been preserved in ethanol alcohol. The most basic way of making a tincture is to use crushed and dried plant materials. Soak these materials in alcohol for at least a week or 2. The harder the material, the longer the tincture needs to macerate. Hard materials like roots and bark may need to macerate for as long as 6 weeks. Maceration is simply the process of soaking in the alcohol. During this process, remember to shake your airtight container at least twice a day so that the plant materials are evenly distributed throughout the mix. Make sure the alcohol content of your tincture is at least 80 proof, or 40% alcohol, so that the plant material doesn't mildew while it's being soaked. After a couple of weeks, remove the plant material from your tincture by straining it out with a cheesecloth. Wrap the cheesecloth around the lid of a container and pour the tincture into it. The plant material will be trapped in the cloth. Tinctures are more potent than infusions. A single dose of tincture, 1 or 2 tablespoons, has as much potency as 1 or 2 cups of an infusion. Additionally, tinctures have a much longer shelf life than infusions or decoctions. While infusions and decoctions must be used within days, the alcohol in a tincture can preserve it for years. Some tinctures can retain their potency for up to a decade. When making tinctures, I prefer to use either unflavored 80 proof vodka or unflavored moonshine of 80 proof or above. Salves are used as ointments to either protect or heal the skin. There are many bases that may be used in creating salves. The herbal materials are then added to these salve bases, mixed thoroughly, and applied to the injured area. My personal favorite recipe for a salve base is 1 cup of organic virgin olive oil and 1 ounce of beeswax. The olive oil is heated, but not to the boiling point. The beeswax is then shaved using a cheese grater or a knife and is added to the heated olive oil. 1 ounce of beeswax is approximately equal to 2 tablespoons of shaved wax. Stir well until it's mixed and then remove from the heat and add your herbs. Put the resulting mixture into salve jars until cooled. You may have to vary the ratio of 1 cup of olive oil to 2 tablespoons of shaved beeswax, depending on your own particular needs. As with everything in herbal medicine, practice makes perfect. Finally, poultices are simply crushed moist plant materials that are applied to various parts of the body and held in place with a cloth bandage. Poultices are usually used to reduce swelling and soreness or to relieve arthritis pain. Next week, we'll look at some basic herbs that every herbal apothecary needs to have around the house. The green corner Sustainable transportation, ethanol, and flexible fuel vehicles. Flexible fuel vehicles are designed to run on more than one type of fuel, usually either gasoline or E85 ethanol, or both. The advantage of flex fuel vehicles is they come in about the same sizes and have about the same performance as their pure gasoline-powered counterparts. If you can't find E85 ethanol while you're out traveling, you can also burn regular gasoline in a flex fuel vehicle. Ethanol is a type of alcohol, usually made from corn or other grains in the United States, and from sugarcane in many South American countries, most notably Brazil. The designation E85 refers to the amount of ethanol content in the fuel. The higher the E number, the higher the percentage of ethanol content. For example, E85 ethanol contains 85% ethanol and 15% gasoline. Of course, there are some difficulties with ethanol production. One common objection to ethanol is that if we use crops like corn for ethanol, then that corn is taken out of the food stream. Even if we use non-food crops for ethanol production, we have to have the land upon which to grow these crops. Any land used for ethanol-producing crops is land that cannot be used for growing food crops. One possible solution to this problem is to use vegetable byproducts or other processes. For example, certain types of wood chips can also be converted to ethanol. Ethanol as a fuel is a mixed blessing. While it is sustainable in that it comes from plants that can be grown again every year, the process of converting it to fuel takes more energy than you get out of it. Of course, this is ultimately true of any fuel, including gasoline. The difference in fossil fuels is that the energy used to make the crude oil that is used in gasoline production was expended over millions of years. Other methods of producing ethanol and other types of fuel, alcohol, are also currently under development. Many of these new methods have the potential of reducing energy input required to produce fuel, so that ethanol may become more economical in the future. One recent example is the development of a method to create ethanol out of corn cobs. While corn itself is a part of the food stream, corn cobs are not. If ethanol from corn cobs turns out to be viable, it could be a way to produce fuel from non-food item sources. In many parts of South America, sugarcane is used to produce ethanol. Sugarcane is much easier than corn to convert to ethanol. This means that the price for ethanol from sugarcane is considerably lower than that of ethanol from corn. Unfortunately, there aren't many suitable places in the United States right now to grow sugarcane. Perhaps if there is any benefit at all to global warming, many places in the U.S. may have the proper climate for growing sugarcane in the future. The only way that flexible fuel vehicles would be truly sustainable would be if they could burn E100 ethanol with no gasoline whatsoever. Some flex fuel vehicles can also run on E100 ethanol, but in general it would void the car's warranty to deviate from the manufacturer's recommendation of using E85. Another thing to consider in using ethanol as an alternative fuel is the amount of land necessary to grow enough corn to meet our fuel needs at present consumption rates. The Earth Policy Institute estimates that in order for the United States to meet its current energy needs with ethanol alone, we'd need 250 million acres of land dedicated to growing corn for ethanol production. This is an area roughly the size of Texas, Arizona, Oklahoma, and Louisiana combined. Of course, if we could devote all that land to growing corn for ethanol, we could reduce the amount considerably by practicing fuel conservation or by producing more efficient vehicles. But even if we didn't reduce our consumption demands, this could also be quite a boon to corn farmers, especially if corn cobs can be used in ethanol production. An advantage to flexible fuel vehicles is that they're available right now. In fact, over 70% of the cars sold in Brazil last year were flex fuel, and the trend seems to be catching on in the United States as well. If you're interested in purchasing a flexible fuel vehicle, or would like more information, visit the National Ethanol Vehicle Coalition's website at www.e85fuel.com. This site also has information on where you can purchase E85 ethanol near you, as well as what's available in terms of flex fuel vehicles. You've been listening to the Way of the Taibhsear podcast on International Pagan Radio, where it's all pagan all the time. This has been episode 31, The Sons of Tuireann, part 2. Music on this episode featured Nocturne by the Sea and Black Mountain by Night Monk from the album Tales from the Fire Circle. The meditation on seeking the Awan is from the album Druid Meditations on the Awan by Shenka the Vate, available on iTunes, Amazon, and on International Pagan Radio's website at internationalpaganradio.com. The Way of the Taibhsear is the official podcast of the Order of the Taibhsear. You can learn more about us at taibhsear.com. That's taibhsear.com. Or at Elder Grove Seminary's website at eldergrove.org. The Way of the Taibhsear is a podcast about Druidry and paganism as practiced by the Order of the Taibhsear. Paganism is a wide and diverse community, and we don't claim to speak for all pagans. You can get in touch with us at the show at podcast@taibhsear.com. That's podcast@taibhsear.com. To learn more about Shenka the Vate's music and meditative albums, visit shenkathevate.com. That's spelled SENCHATHEVATE.com. Until next time, blessings of the ancestors.